Well, justice has arrived for Peter Navarro, the former Trump trade advisor who became an architect of the attempted coup to overturn the 2020 election. Navarro has to report to federal prison in Miami by March 19th to begin serving a 4-month sentence for contempt of Congress. Let's discuss. I'm Dave Aronberg, state attorney for Palm Beach County, aka the Florida lawman here on the MeidasTouch network. Thank you for all your comments and your likes. Keep them coming. And it takes a Florida lawman to recognize a Florida man. And now Peter Navarro will be a Florida man because in 1 week he is headed to federal prison in Miami. And I know he's a big fan of the Green Bay Packers. After all, he named the coup the Green Bay Sweep after a famous running play by his favorite football team. But, I don't think there are too many Packer fans in federal prison in Miami. He may want to adopt the Dolphins as his team. After all, he'll be wearing Dolphin colors in orange. Mighty, a lot of you have asked, how long will it take for Peter Navarro to finally get justice? Well, it's here. In a week, he will be reporting to prison. He's hoping that the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals will stay his sentence. But no, now he's got his date. The Bureau of Prisons is expecting him. And there is really no chance that the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, the same appellate court that ruled 3-0 against Trump in his attempt to get absolute immunity, where they pretty much mocked him in the opinion, saying, yeah, do you really think a president can order SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival and get away with it? Of course not. So they're not going to forestall the inevitable. Peter Navarro is heading to prison in a week. Now, as far as how we got here, Peter Navarro was an unknown to the Trump administration. When Trump became president, Trump ordered Jared Kushner to research China and how to get tough on China. So what did Jared do? He went on Amazon to look for books, and he found this obscure writer named Peter Navarro, who wrote a book about getting tough on China, and they gave him a job as trade advisor. And Peter Navarro, who is now 74 years old, is liking himself an expert on everything. I mean, he is the most insufferable of all the Trump sycophants. I mean, just ask him. He just thinks he's the smartest guy in every room. He is unusually obnoxious. And he then became, what in his mind, an election expert. He came up with part of the plan for the attempted coup because he tried to delay the matters in the House, and that would give Trump supporters enough time to send the stuff back to the states, and he tried to create fake election fraud. And here's how Politico described it. The January 6th committee subpoenaed Navarro for testimony, primarily about his efforts to work with Bannon on a strategy aimed at forcing delays in the January 6, 2021 session of Congress, where lawmakers were tasked with certifying Joe Biden's victory in the election. Navarro also compiled a series of 3 election-related reports touting largely discredited claims of fraud, one of which Trump cited in a now infamous tweet calling his supporters to Washington for a wild protest. And that's why Navarro deserves blame for the entire mess on January 6th. But he's not been found guilty of January 6th. He's been found guilty of contempt of Congress. I know it's unsatisfying, but it's a measure of justice. And he's going to go to prison. Now, as far as Navarro, he thinks that he can still win the day in the argument that he should have had executive privilege. But meanwhile, that's on Trump for not doing that, for not invoking it for Navarro. Instead, of course, Navarro remains loyal to Trump, and he's blaming the judge. Not going to work. That could work on right-wing media, but it's not going to work in a court of law. And you can see how insufferable this guy is just by his unabashed way he bragged about his Green Bay sweep on national TV. Here's this infamous clip that he had with Ari Melber.
We had over 100 congressmen and senators on Capitol Hill ready to implement the sweep. There would be enough concern amongst the legislatures that most or all of those states would decertify the election. That would throw the election to the House of Representatives.
You will use the incumbent losing party's power, that was the Republican Party that was losing power, to overtake and reverse that outcome. Do you realize you are describing a coup?
No, I totally reject many of your premises. The election was still in doubt and would be until it was certified.
Peter Navarro refused to cooperate with the January 6th commission. because Peter Navarro thought he was better than that. He said executive privilege protected him. Meanwhile, Donald Trump didn't even invoke executive privilege to keep Peter Navarro from testifying. That's the irony in this, is that Navarro is so loyal to Donald Trump, but Donald Trump wasn't loyal to him, didn't give him the lifeline of executive privilege. Not that it would have helped, but still, Navarro is saying that the judge erred in his trial because he wasn't able to present the defense of executive privilege, and that's his basis for appealing. It's not going anywhere. But the reason why Peter Navarro got into this pickle to begin with is because he refused to cooperate with the January 6th Commission. He refused to testify. He refused to provide documents. He did what Steve Bannon did. He ghosted the committee. And he thought he would get away with it, like Steve Bannon thought he would as well, and we'll get to that. But Navarro didn't show up, and so then the committee voted to hold him in contempt. Then it goes to the full Congress. The full Congress voted to hold him in contempt and refer it to the Department of Justice, and the Department of Justice decided to file charges against him. And they were able to indict him for 2 counts of contempt of Congress, and he was then, earlier this year, found guilty after a trial and sentenced to prison. And the judge in the case, Judge Mehta, who is an Obama appointee, refused to stay the sentence. So Judge Mehta said, nope, you are going straight to jail. So then Peter Navarro tried to appeal it, and the appeals haven't saved him from prison yet. And now the Bureau of Prisons has given him a date to report. It's really happening. Now, you probably are wondering about Steve Bannon, because Steve Bannon did the same thing as Peter Navarro. They worked together. They both ghosted the January 6th committee. They both went to trial. They both were found guilty. In fact, Steve Bannon was found guilty long before Peter Navarro. He was found guilty after a jury trial in July of 2022. And he received the same 4-month sentence as Peter Navarro. The difference is Steve Bannon had a judge, a federal judge, Judge Nichols, who was appointed by Donald Trump, who allowed Bannon to stay out on appeal. He said that, yeah, maybe Bannon will win one of his arguments on appeal, so he allowed him to stay out. Keep in mind, it's rare for judges to allow convicted defendants to remain home, remain out there doing your thing, not even no house arrest, just go out there and, do your podcast, just act like everything is normal. Just stay out there pending your appeal. And especially because in this case, the appeals aren't good ones. And what Steve Bannon's strategy is to remain out until he hopes that Donald Trump becomes president again, then he gets pardoned again. You remember that Steve Bannon was previously pardoned by Donald Trump for the We Build the Wall charity scam, where Bannon and some cohorts raised money from people who were big Trumpers, who were duped into giving money to help build the wall, privately funded wall, and then they stole the money and funneled it elsewhere. Well, Steve Bannon was charged, and Donald Trump then pardoned him. So Steve Bannon was able to escape that, and he's hoping the same thing will happen here. As for when Steve Bannon is supposed to report to prison, there's no date yet. His appeals are still pending, and it's taking a long time. I personally don't think that it will last past the 2024 election. I think eventually he will get sent to prison, but it is frustrating because justice delayed is justice denied. But I do think that eventually justice will happen with Steve Bannon, just like it's happening with Peter Navarro, because I do believe that 2024 is the year of accountability. And I know with Peter Navarro, people say he should get more than 4 months. Yeah, I agree. But we're talking about just 2 counts of contempt of Congress, not a major charge, but it is something. And when he goes to prison, Peter Navarro, at the age of 74 years old, will be the first top advisor to Donald Trump to serve jail time for an offense related to trying to overturn the 2020 election. So there you have it. It's happening, although I know for a lot of us it's unsatisfying, but it is something. And doesn't mean it's the end for Peter Navarro. There could be more indictments down the road. We don't know yet, but I do think that this is the year of accountability. So stay tuned. Thank you for watching. I'm Dave Aronberg, aka the Florida Lawman, here on the MeidasTouch Network. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. and I'll see you next time.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.